Thank you, Nicola. Dobar dan svima. Good day, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to start with a number, 60,000. 60,000 people left Bosnia and Herzegovina last year. Only Haiti and Venezuela suffer greater brain drain than Bosnia and Herzegovina, according to the World Economic Forum. This is a problem that I think a lot about. This is a problem I talk a lot about with government and business leaders, how to stem the brain drain, how to stem this loss of the BIH's greatest resource. I'd like to talk to you all today about a solution that is in hand, that a solution that can be used by any citizen acting individually. And that's the phone you're holding in your hand, the tablet in your lap, or the computer on your desk. It's not the devices that are the solution, but the solution is the connections that those devices enable, the connections to networks that are globally distributed, that connect people here in Bosnia and Herzegovina to the world. Now, I am one of the oldest persons in this room today, so I'm taking a little bit of a risk talking about social media and smartphones. But I want to talk about it because I want to make sure you see the potential that these devices and this connectivity can turn brain drain into brain gain. Because any idea that can change a life or change a community, it's probably going to take more than one person to turn into action. Now, in the old days, before we had phones and this great ability to connect, you might have found someone to join you with your idea, who shared your idea and wanted to join your quest by putting up a notice on a bulletin board or an ad in the paper, and maybe you'd find an ally. Well, nowadays, it's much easier to find people who would share your idea. Because the reality is your idea, your ambition may be shared by only a handful of people. But with these devices, even if you live in a tiny hamlet on top of a mountain in Bosnia and Herzegovina, you can connect with someone who shares your idea. You can find them. And when you find them, you can achieve amazing things together. I'd like to give you a story to illustrate the power of this potential. Biomech is a biotech firm in Virginia. Its CEO, John Douglas, was browsing the internet one day looking for some ideas. And he came across this video, which I'd like to play for you now. That is Igor Perric. Igor is from Bijeljina. When he made that video, he was in Germany studying for a PhD. And he made that video he wasn't trying to create a music video for Britney Spears. He was trying to demonstrate a problem that he was trying to solve in his research. And that was how that light could be tracked by a computer. And if a computer can track that motion, then a computer can also track limbs and prosthetics. And a computer can turn into applications for improving your tennis swing or improving the healing of an injured knee. John Douglas saw this, and he said, my company, Biomech, is interested in solving that exact same problem. So he reached out to Igor. They talked. John wanted to know about Igor's research. John offered Igor a job as his director of research. They found each other on the web. They found each other trying to solve a similar problem. And they ended up working together. Now, fast forward, after a few years working together, Igor convinced John that there's more talent like me in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Why don't we open an office in Bijeljina? And today, they have 14 employees plus 6 interns working on this incredible groundbreaking research. And the best news, Igor has just won his first US patent. So these networks are built on binary code and semiconductors, and they provide this connectivity of two individuals like Igor and John, who clearly benefited as individuals because Igor found a great job and John found a great pool of talent. But their connection, their human connection, as we see in the work from Biomech, has tremendous potential for helping humanity. So those connections between individuals, those human connections, are also the building blocks of community. And community is not just defined by your neighborhood, where you grew up. It's not just defined by your ethnicity or your religion or some other characteristic you share. In fact, in the community you grew up in, your unique ideas and interests may set you apart. Your ideas might make you feel isolated where you are. That isolation might even make you think about emigrating to find like minds. But with reaching out through networks and making connections, you will find that the idea that makes you unique in your local environment actually is the idea that will connect you to a larger community, a global community. And connecting to that larger community can change your life. I found someone on the internet, on LinkedIn actually, who I found shared my goals and my interests. His name is Eddie Chustovich. Eddie left with his family. He fled the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina when he was just 7 years old. They settled in Australia. And Eddie has now completed his studies, of course, and is a successful entrepreneur and a professor of engineering. But Eddie never forgot his interest, his connection to Bosnia and Herzegovina. And he was asking himself, how can I connect? How can I give back to the community, to the country I left behind? And he also started to think about, who else shares my interest? Who else shares my goal? And he started to look to networks to find out who else in the diaspora would share his interest. His particular interest is supporting students of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM. He found hundreds of people in the BIH diaspora with that skill, ready to give back to their community, to reach students here who might feel isolated in their local community, but who need support, the support of mentoring, the support of scholarships, the support of gatherings, even the support of maker spaces. Eddie used networks, made connections, built a community. I think he's changing the world. This inspires me. This energizes me. And because these networks are there, the people are there, but it's still incumbent on you, especially youth, to reach out and make those connections and find your community. So as U.S. Ambassador in Bosnia and Herzegovina, I would like to help. And I challenged my team to think about how could we stimulate this kind of interaction, this building of community. And I'd like to brag a little bit about the idea that my team came up with, and it's called BOLD. BOLD stands for BiH Omladinski Lideri. Our idea is that there are many people here in Bosnia and Herzegovina, many young people who want to have a better future in this country, who don't want to leave. And we now have actually 2,500 members across the country of young people who are ready to be empowered. And what I love about BOLD is it's not about us. It's about you, the youth of this country, and your ideas, and your will to reach a better future. Now, I enjoy learning languages because I find that through language you can help understand how people think. And when I think about connections, in the local language, there's a phrase that intrigues me, which I hear, and that's Precoveze. Now, Precoveze you can translate as getting things done through connections. That's a universal concept useful around the world, but here in Bosnia-Herzegovina, it has a very negative connotation. And I'd like to challenge you to help make that negative connotation obsolete, because it's about, those connections are about reaching out, finding people who share your ideas, reaching out and finding a community and coming together to create a better future, because community is not just a location or a shared characteristic. Community is also a fellowship of interests, ideas, and goals. And when you find that community, you'll find you're not alone. Now, when we launched BOLD, we launched it with a pitching competition. And we brought together young people from across the country to Sarajevo, and we asked them to come up with ideas of projects that they'd like to implement in their community. One of the ideas was from Amra Choloch and 6 other young people had this idea. They called it demand culture. And their idea was culture, art, theater, music is of interest not only for people who live in cities. It should be available and engage artists and people across, even in small towns across BIH. Well, just last month, this idea, by the way, it won the audience's great support. And with that, a small grant from the U.S. Embassy. And last month, they organized their first activity, which was a concert and an exhibition in Stolac. They attracted 200 participants in just the first 48 hours. Now, I met Amra and her teammates last year in an auditorium not unlike this. And I'm back here in an auditorium talking about my idea, hoping that I find more people interested who share that idea of making a better future. And I want to ask you, why are you here on a Saturday? You're listening to people talk about ideas. I think it's because you have ideas of your own. And I think it's because you're looking for inspiration. And I want you to take the motivation that brought you here today to seek inspiration and seek ideas, to reach out and find other people who agree with your ideas and may be supporting your ideas. Because when you find that community, there are many obstacles for anyone in BIH to overcome. But without a community, it's difficult. The community will bring you support and inspiration to overcome the obstacles. One more story, homegrown. I met Nermin Topovcic, a 21-year-old law student in Banja Luka last year. We had a meetup of BOLD members in Banja Luka. Nermin had an idea. He calls it Tvoj glas je bitan. He said, we have to make an extra effort to teach young people that their vote is important, their voice is important. They don't understand the value. I said, that sounds like a great idea. I love it. That's your idea. You can make it happen. You don't need me to make that happen. I support you. He took that as inspiration. They launched Tvoj glas je bitan. He turned to networks like Facebook and Instagram. He's built a community of 300 young people across the country, in 50 cities, and they have thousands of followers on Instagram and Facebook. Now, I think Nermin's idea is great, and I want to second his call to action. I want to remind all young people to speak up. Your voice is important. Your voice is vital. With that, I encourage all young people to speak up and exercise not just their voice, but their vote, because that vote is what determines the future. And the younger your future, the younger you are, the more important that vote is to the future. So I also encourage everyone to take the next step. Take the inspiration that brought you together today and reach out and find your community. Don't wait for opportunity to come to you. Create your own opportunity. Like Eddie, like Igor, like Amra, like Nermin. I can't wait to see what you'll do. And if you share it on LinkedIn or social media, I'm sure I will see it. Hvala svima.